to build a lifestyle revolution, it means that it's literally every aspect of who you are. We are powerful through our actions, and it is true that every choice we make shapes the world.
It's time to change the world.
There's got to be a better way.
It's time for something better.
You feel like you can't really make a difference, but the fact is that you can.
We're telling the stories of people who are changing the world and how you can help.
We just need more companies that are out there solving these problems.
Businesses, nonprofits, artists, and individuals who have found a problem and then created a solution.
If we want to have real impact, we have to do it together.
You'll come away from every episode with action steps you can take to be part of that solution.
We're never going to feel satisfied and happy if we just stay the same.
We can each change the world every single day.
People can actually come together and build a future for themselves along with other people.
Our daily actions have a massive impact. So what will we do about it? We can remake the world. Because guess what? We can. Hi everyone, I'm Nathan Gardner, and this is We Can Remake the World, a podcast about people who are changing the world and how you can help. So I just watched a beautiful short film on Apple TV, and I wanted to tell you all about it. It's narrated by David Attenborough from the Our Planet series and many other environmental series, and it's called The Year Earth Changed. And it's all about how nature has been rebounding while us humans have been staying home and traveling less and getting out less. The footage is so beautiful, and it's a lot of stories of how nature is bouncing back because people are having less impact on the planet, on wild areas. One example that sticks with me is the fact that humans aren't on beaches as much these days because we're all staying in. And so sea turtles, which typically have a hard time finding a place to lay their eggs, can do so in peace with less intervention from people on those beaches, especially in Florida, for example. Scientists are estimating that more young sea turtles will make their way into the ocean because of this, which will allow their numbers to rebound a bit. Penguins in South Africa are having a similar experience, where they can get to their young to feed them because there aren't people in the way on the beaches. So the penguin populations are expected to rebound as well. One that really stuck out to me because it makes so much sense, we just don't think about it, is the fact that whales along the Pacific Northwest are also rebounding and able to communicate with each other better because there aren't as many cruise ships, which are constantly going up and down those coasts, disrupting the migration patterns and feeding patterns and breeding patterns of whales. Without those cruise ships, whales can hear each other better. They can communicate better, and scientists are noticing that whales are communicating in different ways than we're used to because there's not as much noise pollution going on. Watching this film really helped me to find some silver lining in the shifts that we've all been experiencing over the past year. I mean, of course, I can't wait to be able to travel again more easily and more frequently. And more than anything, I want all of us to feel safe and feel healthy and to be able to sort of breathe a sigh of relief after this challenging time. But watching this short film really showed me that there's no doubt that we can find ways to interact with nature and with wildlife without causing continuous harm. We can reduce cruise ship traffic, for example, in the long term, or maybe rotate routes to give certain areas of the ocean a break. We can close beaches temporarily where wildlife need them during the times that are most important for them throughout the year, for breeding or for feeding their young. We can just be thoughtful about every impact we have on wild environments and then build infrastructure and think strategically about the best possible choices we can make. While thinking about these things after watching this movie, I also recognized a familiar feeling of wanting to do something, wanting to get involved, wanting to make a difference, wanting to do my part to protect nature and protect and preserve wildlife, but not always knowing where to start or how to make an impact that really matters. This is exactly what happened to our guest today. She went from being a successful retailer to a self-described climate warrior. but it didn't happen overnight. Our episode today focuses on one woman's journey to be part of the solution when it comes to climate change, which has inspired hundreds of thousands of other women's journeys and hopefully will inspire yours. When you hear the words climate change, what do they mean to you? What do you think of? On paper, I think it often means changes in weather patterns, events in nature which are unpredictable and unusual, warming air or warming oceans. But what does this really mean? Climate change is a symptom, not a cause, right? So what's at the root? What's causing these changes in our climate, these shifts in our world? At the heart of these changes is imbalance. A disrupted relationship with our planet and with nature. A way of behaving in the world that is not sustainable because it's causing harm to the system without giving the system a chance to recover or adapt. That's the definition of sustainability, right? Something that can last. Something that has give and take. Our guest today spent the first part of her life building a successful retail business. She wasn't thinking every day about her impact on the planet. She wasn't concerned with her contribution to sustainable or unsustainable behavior. She was just living her life. Until one day she woke up to the truth. Our lifestyles matter, and they have to change if we're going to continue to have a healthy environment, a healthy planet, and therefore healthy people. Currently, 1 Million Women has over 800,000 women and girls from around the globe who have taken a commitment to make daily action to support the planet. It's a true grassroots movement, a community of women and men around the world who are learning from each other about how to live more sustainably. The goal of 1 Million Women is to inform members with information and to offer practical ways to build habits that respect and protect our Earth into everyday life. They've built a marketplace online to showcase eco-friendly products. They also host virtual events to educate and inspire their members, and they've built a really amazing app with climate-friendly tips and articles and resources and ways to connect with other members so that you can build a new lifestyle around these ideas of protecting and preserving our environment. We all want encouragement and support and accountability when we're building new lifestyle habits, right? And that's exactly what 1 Million Women is designed to do. We recently spoke with Natalie, the founder of 1 Million Women, about her journey from plastic-fueled profit to purpose and building a community focused on protecting our planet. Natalie believes each of us is a powerful engine for change, and she speaks from experience because she knows that she is a powerful engine for change. She'll share the biggest ways she believes we can all make a positive impact on the Earth every day, and why it's crucial that we build that impact into every aspect of our lives as soon as possible. So today I'm speaking with Natalie Isaacs, the founder of 1 Million Women, based in Sydney, Australia. Thanks so much for being here with me, Natalie.
It's a pleasure.
So I'd actually like to get started with your story. Would you mind sharing how you went from your former life to your current life building 1 Million Women?
Oh, what a good question. Because although I was passionate about life, I really was disconnected to the whole climate change issue. And I just thought it was someone else's problem. But 1 Million Women has taught me to really appreciate and understand the earth. It's this reciprocal approach. So I was a cosmetics manufacturer for 24 years, and I didn't actually really know what I was doing until close to the end, until the last few years of being a cosmetics manufacturer. Well, at least I thought I didn't know. But I guess when I look at my journey with 1 Million Women, I probably, without realizing it, was on this journey a lot earlier than I actually knew myself. When I started as a cosmetics manufacturer, my brand, Natalie, when I started, really did have this love of earth and this love of yourself. And And I think that really helped shape my thinking when I started 1 Million Women. But what happened with Natalie is that it went really well at the beginning. I think I was one of the pioneers in Australia on aromatherapy, and my brand Natalie really spoke to that, and it was growing really well, and it was really getting a name for itself, which was very hard to do, to be a niche brand in this cosmetics industry. So I felt that I could, diversify. And so I got seduced by the big department stores. The department stores came to me asking for brands, and it became another arm to my cosmetics company. And it was a whole new ball game. It was fast fashion. It was fast cosmetics. It was cheap stuff. And I got seduced by that because I thought, well, Natalie, my main brand, it's going well. Everybody loves it, and it's there in beauty salons, and it's this holistic approach. Now, if I could just do these brands for the department store chains, and the money that I would get from that, I would feed back into Natalie, and it would all be perfect. And so I would go to these department store chains, and it would be this whole process. You'd go early in the year, and the buyer from the department store would go, I love it, Nat. That looks fabulous. And I would go in with the product, no packaging, and it would be, $39.95 Australian dollars or $29.95. And the buyer would go, I love it, Nat. Now, can you come back to me in 2 months, and I would like it to retail at $9.95, not $39.95. And you have to put that product in a plastic outer box, and you have to put all those products inside the box in a little acetate plastic sleeve. And then you have to put the outer box into a pack of 6 shrink wrapped in plastic, and then we'd like you to put it in a plastic tray so that it can sit on the shelf in that pack of 6. And then we need you to shrink wrap the whole thing and put it in a box, a shipper. And so I would go in with this one product without any packaging. And so the process over the course of the year would be that I would have to get it into 6 layers of plastic packaging, and the product would have to be so cheap and so terrible because I needed to get it down to $9.95. And so although my product would look amazing on the shelf, it was just made of crap. And year after year, I'd do the same thing. I would go with a product which I felt had no packaging, and by the end of it, I'd get beaten down to have the littlest margin for me so that I could sell it for $9.95. And so I was fueling the fast fashion industry myself. And I used to go at Christmas time, I used to go to the department store about a week out, which is the peak period. And I would just stand by my product and I would watch, I would observe. And what I was observing at the time was how many people were buying my product, how much of my product was making its way into the shopper's trolley. And what I witnessed, though, was this extraordinary, crazy overconsumption. And I don't know what happens to us at Christmas time, but we turn up at department stores and fill our trolleys with as much stuff as we can. I don't know, to tick a box, to fill a list of presents around a Christmas tree. And once I was starting to get the point on climate change, I started to realize what my product was doing and what it was contributing to the problem. And I started to feel ill about, my product sitting around someone's Christmas tree wrapped up, and a young girl looking and opening up that product and opening up the layers and layers of packaging and seeing this beautiful product and then getting excited by it. But within a week it would break because it was only made of cheap crap. And so I actually sold my soul to the devil in the end. And I hadn't realized the ramifications of that and what I was doing to the waste and overconsumption as a cosmetics manufacturer. And so that was a big wake-up call to me, and it really showed me the power of the consumer. If consumers walked past my product and said, you know what, I'm not going to buy that product, even though it looks nice, but it's got layers of packaging and it's cheap, I'm not going to buy it. And if consumers protested and didn't buy my product, that would send a message directly to me through the buyer that people don't want that. It would send a message to the buyer of the department store that people don't want it, and then it would send the message to me. So I really saw the power of the consumer, because I kept selling my product and department stores kept buying my product because consumers kept buying them. And so I learned a lot from my cosmetic days, but I saw a lot of overconsumption.
I think that's such a powerful story, just because you saw it from a very unique perspective, which is more on the producing side, and also having a relationship with buyers and seeing what's driving them. And yeah, I just think that's a really powerful story. And it reminds me of something I saw on the 1 Million Women website about the organization's belief that we need a lifestyle revolution globally. And I'd love to hear you just speak a bit more about what a lifestyle revolution means from your perspective. Would love to just hear you speak a bit more about that.
It's the holistic approach to living. And the story evolved that it has to be all encompassing. To build a lifestyle revolution, it means that it's literally every aspect of who you are. It is about your actions and your choices and the way you live your life. What we focus on at 1 Million Women are the big things. So we focus on food waste and we focus on diet, meat consumption because it has a really big carbon footprint, or dairy, or we focus on transport and that how you get from A to B with the least impact on the planet. How we can put, and this is pre-COVID times, of course, but, how you can put public transport, walking before you think of jumping in your car, which is something that I never did when I first started 1 Million Women. I live on the northern beaches of Sydney, and just at the bottom of my street is a bus stop. Across the road is a bus stop. And just up the street is a bus stop. And I never, before I started 1 Million Women, this is really terrible to admit, I never jumped on the bus to go to the city, ever. I jumped in my 4-wheel drive, my big Pajero, which was this gas-guzzling car, and I never considered the pollution that I was creating by being a little lazy and driving everywhere. And once I started thinking about public transport first instead of last, it literally changed my life. I never drive to the city anymore. But the thing that actually shifted my thinking, changed my life, was I got our household electricity consumption down. And I did it by just, focusing on the low-hanging fruit. And I reduced our electricity consumption by 20%. And when I saw the bill and that I had just saved all this pollution and all this money at the same time, that is literally what shifted the gear. That's what changed my life forever. So once I saw that I had just done something actually enormous, it was that moment that I realized I was actually powerful, and that I was powerful through my actions. And it didn't matter that I didn't know anything about climate change really, or I didn't understand what policies were in at the time. I just knew I had done this action. And I realized that climate change was all about us, me. It was about my family, my friends. So I just decided to jump in and get involved. And I figured if there were millions of households out there that did that exact thing, that must shift the system. That must make a difference. And that is really what led me to 1 Million Women, because once I had reduced my household consumption, electricity consumption, I then went, oh, what more can I do? Where else do I go now? And before I knew it, I had literally changed my life. I had done it through this feeling of empowerment. And I then went on the net and I thought, okay, there must be something out there that's speaking to me, right now. Like, I just done all this amazing stuff in my life. What's out there? What organization can now take me on my journey? And to my surprise, there was nothing that spoke to me at the time. I was looking for my tribe and it wasn't there. And there were a lot of environmental organizations, amazing environmental organizations out there, literally millions. But nothing or no organization was speaking to me at that moment. Hey, Nat, you've just done this amazing thing. Let me take you along this journey of lifestyle change. Let me show you what to do next. And so I couldn't find it. I just decided to fill it. I thought that I need this. Let me create it. And that was the start of the creation of 1 Million Women. That I wanted to reach women from the city to the bush. I wanted to tell women everywhere about my story, that this just happened to me. And, I was in the camp of inaction, and there must be millions of women out there like me, not acting for whatever reason. And if I could just tell them my story, they would jump on board too. And so that was really the starting point of 1 Million Women. And, and 10 years later, we are now 970,000 women from across the world.
Wow, that's amazing. I love so much of what you said. I think the idea that it started with something simple, which is, like you said, reducing energy consumption. And then that idea of empowerment, I think, is so important too, because we do have power in our daily choices and in how we live our lives. Would you speak about you mentioned food waste. Would you speak about some of the other ways that you found as you were sort of starting your own journey to really make an impact just with how you were running your home or interacting with businesses and day-to-day experiences?
Yes. So it's an interesting thing, empowerment, because once or when you start acting in your life, you can't stop. And that was the idea behind 1 Million Women. We wanted to create something that, you went on and you made this commitment to cut a ton of pollution out of your life within a year. And there was all these small actions with these quick rewards. If you did this, it will result in this. And we found that by creating this approach where you do small actions with a quick return that moves you along your journey of empowerment, it'll take you from one action to another, to another, to another. And so we focus on household energy. We focus on sustainable fashion, divestment, making sure that banks and institutions, that the financial institutions that we invest in, where we bank, and our pension funds and our super funds are with financial institutions that align with our values. So there I was with 1 Million Women, 3 years in, and I thought I was the eco-warrior. I thought I had changed everything in my life, and I had this growing community and movement of women. And I didn't realize that the bank and my super fund invested in fossil fuels. It didn't occur to me to look that far. And so it's these sorts of things in your life that we focus on. And we also focus on empowerment and how that changing the way that you live is really a holistic approach. It can't just be one thing. And it can't just be the way that you live. It needs to be it all. We need to live climate action and we need to fight for it too.
I love that. I think it's so easy for so many of us to not even realize the opportunities we have to make a positive impact. Like you're saying, it's so easy to be sort of out of sight, out of mind, or to not think about something as an opportunity when we're just going about our day-to-day lives, because we're not used to having these conversations at this level where we see every aspect of our lives as an opportunity to either create more detrimental impact or more positive impact. And I think it's so important to do the work that you're doing, which is to help people understand that they do have opportunities in every aspect of life when it comes to how they get themselves from point A to point B, or their financial opportunities beyond just purchasing as a consumer. It also has to do with investment and sort of where we invest as consumers. Would you speak a little bit more about that? Because that was kind of a new idea for me that just turned a light bulb on. It's a lot. I think it's something that a lot of us don't think about.
I know it's, and we've written this open letter to the financial institutions of the world that still invest in fossil fuels. And I can read you a little tiny bit, because it's on our Instagram, a little tiny bit of the letter to give you a feel for a little bit of what we said. Open letter from women of the world to banks, super funds, pension funds, and all financial institutions that continue to fund fossil fuels. We are women of the world, asking you to be a leader now at this critical time for humanity and our planet. Will you stop funding the fossil fuel industries? We need to build a safe future for our planet, for the sake of our children, for those living in poverty who've done the least to cause climate change but are suffering the most, for future generations, and for us all. Your role in building this future is critical. You have an opportunity to be a leader, to support renewable energy and other industries that will make our future bright, secure, and safe. You have a moral duty to stop funding the industries that are driving devastating climate impacts. We are shifting our money to the leaders of your sector, to the banks, super funds, and other financial institutions that are not investing in fossil fuels. More and more people will take our lead by moving their money away from your institution if you don't lead now, and stop investing in companies that are fueling climate change. Yeah, so it's an open letter. It goes on, and there's this whole list of institutions that we're going to send that letter to. But first of all, we're getting just as many people as we can to pledge, because it is one of the most powerful things that we can all do right at this time when we're all bunkered down in our homes and we're navigating our way through COVID and, looking at where you bank and making sure that everything that you do is aligned with your values. And so it's not a really hard one to do. It's just one we don't think of. I can promise you, when you know that you are with financial institutions that align with your values, you feel so proud and you want to shout it from the rooftops. And so that is a really important one. And really, it is just a matter of ringing your bank and asking them the question.
I was going to say, how can we determine whether or not our financial institutions are investing in fossil fuels or not?
You ask the question. You ask the question. You go onto their website. You look for their sustainability policies. You see where they're investing, because so many funds now are investing in renewable energy and good things for the planet. And it is just to be investing still today in the fossil fuel industry, in coal, is just because they're going to be stranded assets, the assets that sit there because coal is on the way out, except no one's told us here in Australia. But so it is really just a matter of picking up the phone and asking the question, do you invest in coal, oil and gas? And the bank or whoever it is needs to know why you're doing them. Yeah. So that is a really powerful one. And money, when you think about money, it is every dollar you spend or don't spend shapes the world. Every choice you make, you are making that choice based on your beliefs and your values, and you can leave that single-use plastic on the shelf. You can say no to buying something that you really don't need, or that we are powerful through our actions, and it is true that every choice we make shapes the world.
I think if there's one idea that sort of sings most loudly for me from 1 Million Women, it's that every choice that we make is an expression of our values.
I say a lot when I'm doing a keynote speech or I'm on a panel that a lot of the time we live our lives and looking after the environment or climate change, we live our lives and then we say things like, oh, this is who I am, but I also do this, and this to look after the planet. And so it is always a separate thing. A lifestyle revolution to me and to the way that we communicated at 1 Million Women is really about, this is who I am and this is how I live. It's part of the fabric of who you are. It's part of your heart and your soul. It's part of everything you do, and it's your relationship with the earth. It's how you support community. We rely on our local community so much more now than ever before because of COVID, and I think that, that really demonstrates that to live locally and to shop locally and to support locally, that's what it all means to me. It's living climate action and fighting for it too.
I love that. And I think what it does is take the focus off of some of the external things, which are effective, but can be limiting, I think, as you've said, if you don't take some of these ideas and make that part of your value system. Because then if it's part of who you are, as you're saying, then you'll start to look at every aspect of your life, from how you move through the day to how you move yourself physically through transport, or how you treat others. And then who you are as a consumer is just one facet, but it takes a little less focus off of just this one thing that I think we talk about a lot, and opens the door to really just make it part of every aspect of your life, which I think that's where we make true change. I really agree with you that building it into the DNA as to who you are as a person is, there's just so much more potential there.
Yeah, that's so true. And when we march in the streets and we, put pressure on politicians, or we send a letter to our local politician, or we sign a petition, or we give to charity, an environmental organisation. It is important to do all of those things. It's really important. We have to do it. We all must do those things. But what we can't do is do those things and think that's it. You don't want to turn up to a climate rally and really be there to support whatever it is, and then go home and just continue to live a life filled with overconsumption. Because it's not a trade-off. Climate change needs us all, and it needs us all in every aspect of our lives. And it just doesn't work anymore if we're only doing one part of it. You can't just demand from others if you're going to keep doing the things in your life that are contributing to climate change. And overconsumption is a really big one. And so, I think that's a really important point.
Yeah, and you just touched on something that I'd love to dig into a bit more. I found on one of the videos on the 1 Million Women website just this idea that, politicians and leaders globally tend to debate the issues of environmental impact and preserving our planet sort of without end, but the actual action and policy change comes slowly. So we can't just depend on policymakers and politicians to make the change that we can make ourselves. And would love to hear you just speak more about, the power that we have as individuals and the responsibility that we have to each other and to the planet that goes beyond thinking that, just voicing our values politically is enough.
Yeah. And I think that the journey of empowerment is a really important piece to this. And there's, with this argument that, look, it just doesn't matter what we do. Things will only get fixed when governments put in the policies. But governments are ruled by the people. We put them there. And our lifestyle choices contribute to climate change. I think that when you're acting in your own life, you take responsibility of the issue, and it makes you hold others that aren't acting accountable. And the more that people are empowered by acting individually and collectively, will hold more politicians accountable. So I think that's a really important point to make, that we need to take responsibility ourselves, and when we do, we will hold others accountable who aren't.
Absolutely.
So that's a really important point of owning it and taking action in your life. But also, it is lifestyles that contribute greatly to climate change. If food waste were a country, it'd be the third biggest emitter in the world. It is up to individuals and households to make choices for clean energy. In Australia, we have a rooftop solar revolution going on right now. When I started 1 Million Women, we had, I think there was, 13 or 1,400 houses with rooftop solar, and now there's over 2 million. And that's huge in 10 years. That is huge. And so it doesn't matter what politicians are saying. We can get on with it. We can have every rooftop in this country with solar. Yes, of course, it would be better if we had political support and we had a really clear vision for, renewable energy. But we are getting on with it. 1 in 6 cars will be electric by 2023. We are seeing massive change already that is run by, the people, not by the government. And so I think that there is an enormous amount just through the things that we do. And when we do it collectively, it shifts systems. If consumers left over packaged goods on the shelf to gather dust, they would not make them. If we could reduce food waste down to a minimum, landfill would not be, filled with food waste, which creates methane, which is one of the most potent greenhouse gases. I think it's 23 times more potent than CO2. If we could use public transport over cars, or we walked or cycled more, it would make an enormous difference. If we reduced our meat intake, all of these things are really important. They're big themes and they're big contributors. And so it's important that we are doing it all, and that we should never just wait for governments to put in policies, because that doesn't work. And the more of us that are acting in our own lives, the more pressure that we'll put on governments to do the same thing.
And I think it goes back to what we were saying, which is that with a commitment to lifestyle change from a broader perspective, from a more holistic perspective, where it's part of your value system and part of who you are, then individual lifestyle change on that level leads to system change. Because when people are really asking these questions and applying the solutions to every aspect of their lives, then inevitably whole systems will change. And it doesn't even require enforcement from a governmental or policy level if it's just part of our values. If it's part of who we are, we don't need someone to tell us to do it. And I think that's where real potential lies, is if enough of us make it part of our value system, because forcing people to do it is not nearly as effective as convincing people that they have the power to do so, and that they matter, and that, and that it matters for all of us to make those commitments.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, absolutely.
I'd love to hear your thoughts on what you see as the greatest barriers to positive change, right now. What are some of the obstacles that you see that we can overcome,
Well, I think that the greatest barriers to change in our lives, I guess, is just ourselves. And also, I think that this structured framework of our high consumption society really does, does work hard to prevent us from living simply and changing the way that we live. But I think that it is much easier. Like in the last 10 years, I have seen dramatic change. I have seen this conversation go from just learning about climate change and what our role in this is to incredible communities. People everywhere are engaged on this, whether it's talking about sustainable fashion or plastics in the ocean or reducing food waste or renewable energy. People are talking about this and acting everywhere. And I think it's because this has become incredibly personal. This is not something that is going to be happening in somebody else's lifetime. And this is not something that is not happening to us. This is personal. We are witnessing it and feeling it. We are living through bushfires in this country and across the planet. There are huge weather events that are affecting every corner of the planet. This has become a personal thing. In Australia, the Great Barrier Reef is dying before our eyes, and COVID. All of these things are happening in our lifetime, and that is what's changed. That this is not something that's going to happen in the future. And people are engaged more so than I have ever seen. And that makes me really optimistic. That really does. And I think that more and more people are seeing that the love of earth and the simplicity of it all, of living, is a better way of life than the need for more stuff and the need for the bigger house and the better car, and which is such a big thing in affluent society. We're told that more stuff makes us happy. We're told that the bigger house we have, the more successful we'll be, the more, and I think that people are changing. And so I think it's not what are the barriers right now. It is what is opening the gates. What are the opportunities? And that's what makes me optimistic.
I love that. And I'd love to just ask, for someone who's relatively new to this conversation, where would you recommend that they get started? I know that 1 Million Women really focuses on shepherding people through their journey of learning and self-empowerment and understanding the impact that's right in front of them if they're just aware of it. Where would you recommend someone begin if they're looking to get into this conversation more deeply?
Well, naturally, I'm going to say join 1 Million Women. And I tell you, we launched an app not so long ago, and it's a really nice place to start. It is an app for people just to get going on their journey. And so I would it's free, and I would just download the 1 Million Women app, which you'll find on, the App Store and Google Play, and just search for the number 1 Million Women. And also join us on our social media channels. We've got 2 campaigns running at the moment. One's around food waste, and it's our Food Waste Free October. And that is to teach everybody about how to reduce food waste. And we've got awesome chefs, some pro chefs that are going to spend the month with us to show us all recipes, show us how to use all of the vegetable, really help us. So I would definitely say join 1 Million Women, because you will get carried along the way and supported so much on your own journey. And get active. See what's happening in your own community. What's happening locally? Is there a local community group that you could be part of? Is there something that is happening in your area that you could defend, that if you're not happy with what's going on? Is there a supermarket or a store where you live that you could talk to them about the overpackaging? Or, it's about getting involved, and it's a hard thing to get physically involved at the moment while the world is in lockdown and we're only allowed so many people to join forces. So it's not that easy right now. But it is about getting involved and just doing small things where you see a result. That's what I did when I first started 1 Million Women. I just got my electricity bill down. And so giving yourself those challenges, just challenge yourself to drive less, get your electricity consumption down, get your overconsumption down, get your food waste down. Just give yourself those challenges and see the results. And then I promise you, I guarantee you, it will move you to the next and to the next. And then before you know it, you'll be the climate warrior.
Love it. And you've also recently launched a book, is that right? I think the title is Every Woman's Guide to Saving the Planet. I'm sure that's a great resource. Would you speak just briefly about, what you've included in that book and what your intention was in writing it?
Yeah, so it was beautiful writing my book. And it's kind of part memoir, part toolkit. So it talks about how I started 1 Million Women. It talks about how to build a movement and how I did that. But it also is a real practical guide. So it's got toolkits in every aspect, and it's just showing you what we've learnt through 1 Million Women, and it really is about your entire. It's that lifestyle revolution, that holistic approach, and yes, it's available. It's available in Australia, in the UK, and the US.
Perfect. And what do you think the importance is of empowering, especially women and girls, to, realize that they can make an impact and to consider all of the ways that they can make positive change with the way that they're living? What's the importance of focusing on women and girls specifically from your point of view?
Well, when I started 1 Million Women, it was a no-brainer in terms of making this a women's movement. At the time, there was not much out there about women and climate action, and I think particularly in this country, in Australia. And so it was this intersection between women's empowerment and climate action that I wanted to fill, that gap. But also when I was doing my research, I saw that women were underrepresented in almost every aspect of the climate debate, and which is the common theme, of course, with gender equality. And so to get women empowered on climate change is so important, because we need more women leaders. We need more women around the negotiating table. We need more women at these UN conferences, and we need more women leaders on the world stage now. Women bring more empathy to the role. Women, and research shows that women are more concerned about climate change and future generations, the earth, than men are. And there needed to be a greater focus on women. And so 1 Million Women isn't about being anti-men, because we love blokes involved. And I have had so many men involved in the making and shaping of 1 Million Women. And so it's not that it was about being anti-blokes, it's about dialing up the unique strengths of women. And so I just saw at the time that there was such a gap for that, such a gap for women's empowerment and climate action. Because when I got the point on climate change, I went to find that. I went to find my tribe. I was looking on the net. I was going, where do I go now? What do I do now? How do I get more empowered on this? And I couldn't find it. I saw amazing environmental organizations, and I saw there was so much out there, but none of them was speaking to me personally as a woman who wanted to keep going on this journey and to get more empowered on it. And so that was really significant in terms of starting 1 Million Women. And then when I started doing that research, I also found that women, in affluent societies make 75 to 85% of the consumer decisions that affect the household's carbon footprint, and that women are, huge natural networkers. But I also found that women and children in developing countries, and indeed here, in Australia, in certain places in Australia and anywhere in the world, women and children are the most vulnerable to climate change. They're the most vulnerable. And so knowing all of that and putting all that together, I felt as a woman who lives in an affluent society in Australia, shouldn't I do all I can to live with the least impact on the planet? And shouldn't I make this a women's movement to build the strengths of women and to build the voices of women and to empower women to become leaders in their communities or their workplaces or in government agencies or leaders of countries or whatever it is. Empowerment makes that happen. And so for all those reasons, there was no hesitation to make 1 Million Women a women's movement.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's so much research that shows that when women are empowered in all economies, that economies improve and communities improve. And I think it makes perfect sense, because not just from the consumer standpoint, which, as you said, I think a lot of women and young women are holding more decisions when it comes to consumer behavior and also participating in more industries, frankly, with cosmetics, in addition to the industries that, men and women participate equally in. It's important for women to feel like they do have places to go, to feel empowered, to feel that they can connect with others, to make these changes, to make these commitments and feel supported and inspired by others. And I love that. Yeah. And that leads me to my last question, which is, it's on the website for 1 Million Women, and I loved it when I saw it. And the question was, and I want to ask it to you, what can one woman do?
Well, one woman can do a lot. I know what it says on there. Standing alongside 1 million other women, it's incredible what one woman can do. And I think that we should never, ever underestimate the power that we have as one person, because the world is made up of individuals. And as an individual and as part of a collective, we can literally shape the world.
Love it. Thanks so much, Natalie. It was really, really great chatting with you again. I really appreciate it.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Nathan. Really, my pleasure.
I love the way Natalie talks about 1 Million Women and about the power that all women and men, everyone on this planet, has to make an impact through daily actions. Natalie knows that massive change is possible because she started realizing how big of an impact she's had as just one person. And in my own experience, once you realize your own power in this way, you want others to understand theirs too, because it feels so good. When you care about protecting the planet and respecting nature, and you realize that there's actually so many opportunities to make an impact, it's exciting. And when we really build those values into every aspect of our lives, it gives every choice we make purpose and meaning. Everything around us becomes a deliberate reflection of what we want to be and do in the world. And that's powerful. And that brings us to our first takeaway for today's episode, what we call our changemakers, which we explore after every interview. Changemaker number 1, it's time for a lifestyle revolution. As Natalie says, if we really want to make the biggest impact we can, we have to build it into every aspect of our lives, this decision, this commitment to protect and preserve our Earth and our environment. We each start our journeys in different ways. Some of us will focus on food waste to start. Others will find our way into this way of thinking by cutting down on single-use plastic. But once you realize that there's a way to do everything better in every aspect of life, I think it's hard not to keep finding more and more opportunities to build these values of sustainability and protecting human rights into daily life. I actually just discovered a whole new way to make an impact recently. I've been acting mindfully on these topics for a while, but this one was new for me. During our conversation with Emma, CEO and founder of Final Straw, the reusable straw company, Emma shared that clothes made with polyester of any kind are actually putting tiny particles of plastic into the water supply as we wash our clothes, and therefore into the environment. So I made a choice, after speaking with Emma, to no longer buy any clothing items or household cleaning towels, for example, made with plastic. No polyester in any form. I've been discovering companies which produce the most comfortable shirts and shoes out of 100% natural fibers like organic cotton and hemp, and I've been slowly changing my wardrobe over time. And outside of that, it feels great. I mean, every time I get dressed, I feel like I'm doing something for the planet. Each of us can discover more and more ways to reflect our values through how we behave and what we purchase every day. And engaging with the resources that organizations like 1 Million Women create, or resources like this podcast, and thousands of other resources out there, will help us to bridge the gap between where we are now and where we want to be so that we can make these lifestyle changes. Changemaker number 2. None of us are perfect, and we don't have to be. Natalie went from what many of us would call success, profitability and success in business, to values-based living. Most of us grew up in communities which didn't teach environmental protection or sustainability on a regular basis. So, like Natalie, we kind of have to get the clue on this ourselves. We have to teach ourselves. So let's not beat up on ourselves for the small improvements we're making every day, feeling like they're not big enough or happening fast enough. And let's not give up simply because it feels like we've already gone too far in the other direction. It's not about what you've done up until now. It's about what you'll do moving forward, starting today, now that you know what your options are. And changemaker number 3, you have power as an individual to shape the world. One of my favorite parts of the conversation with Natalie was her light bulb moment, the simple act of reducing her household's energy consumption. This caused her to realize that her and her family's actions matter, and as she said, that she was powerful. If she could save money and protect the earth with such a simple thing, what else could she do? I think this is the most important thing any of us can realize about our world as it is, that we have the power to change it. It's about all of us recognizing that power so that we can collectively shift how we do things here on planet Earth. And as we continue to learn from each other and inspire each other, we just build more momentum for positive change that's coming from us, from our sense of empowerment and our own commitments. We're choosing to be the change. How can we use our voice and our behavior to model a purpose-driven lifestyle? Imagine if 1 million women became 2 million women, and then 10 million people, women and men. How would our world change? Imagine if half of the women in the United States alone, about 83 million women, took this pledge to line up their lifestyle with protecting the earth in every way they could. Then imagine if half the men did too. How exciting would it be to watch that play out? Where millions of households are taking what pioneers like Natalie and others have learned and applying that information and those ideas to build more sustainable lifestyles. We could transform everything from energy consumption to fashion, to food supply chains, to public transportation. It's all about the momentum that comes from millions of individuals making one commitment to do their best with the knowledge they have. Simple as that. Here's what you can do today. Join 1 Million Women. Download the app, sign up for their mailing list, join their community, and learn more about the impact you can start to make today. Share 1 Million Women with people in your life. Tell them why you're bringing a reusable coffee cup everywhere you go, or why you're no longer buying polyester. Share your impact to help others understand what their impact could be. Our challenge for today's episode is to choose one of 1 Million Women's primary lifestyle changes and commit to making change there in your own life. A few examples to consider include reducing food waste, reducing single-use plastics of all kinds, reducing your consumption of meat, dairy, or seafood. Transport, maybe taking public transit or walking or biking wherever you can instead of driving. Choose one that makes sense for you, based on something that you want to learn more about, and then visit the 1 Million Women website for tips on any and all of these lifestyle changes. Maybe consider keeping a journal of the changes that you're making to document what you're learning and to document how your mindset is shifting. This can be a really powerful experience, making lifestyle changes like this that are generated by you, by your own inspiration. And so keeping a record of it and reflecting about it can be really powerful. If you want to support 1 Million Women further, a few ways you can do so include donating to the organization, which is a nonprofit based in Australia. You can do that through their website, the number 1millionwomen.com.au. Or you can join the community and add your voice to theirs by signing up for their mailing list on their website or downloading the app, sharing their content, their resources, and articles with eco tips. You can also follow them on social media to amplify their message, or you can buy Natalie's book called Every Woman's Guide to Saving the Planet, available on Amazon in the US, the UK, and in Australia. If you're anything like me, you started making eco-conscious changes in your life when nobody around you was really doing so. People might think you're strange, and they might ask you why you care so much about something as simple as making sure a plastic bottle goes into a recycling bin instead of a trash can, or they want to know what the big deal is about buying polyester or about eating meat. But what's so important to know is that you're not alone. There are millions of people out there making these lifestyle shifts and inspiring others to do the same. It might seem like it's happening slowly, but I think before long we're going to reach an inflection point, and a lot of us are going to be asking ourselves these questions. You might feel right now like you're the only one who truly cares enough to make these commitments within your immediate circle, but that will change. Connect with others like you through organizations like 1 Million Women and continue to be an example where you are. As we keep having these conversations and starting these conversations and demonstrating our values with our lifestyle choices, others will take notice and they'll start to realize that when they're ready, they can do the same, and the momentum will grow. Thanks so much for being here with us. Thanks for being part of this conversation. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe to our show to get new episodes as they're released. Please give us a rating on whichever platform you're listening on, and please share with others who you think would resonate with our message. The film I mentioned, featuring David Attenborough, showed us that 2020 was a year where Earth changed, where nature had a chance to rebound and show us that it can bounce back when humans lessen their impact. Let's make 2021 the year humanity changed, the year we built new understandings and new ways of living into every level of our society, into our lifestyles, so that we can enjoy an Earth which recovers and thrives. Let's face climate change head on, ask ourselves how we can be part of the solution, and then turn it into that thing that we all experienced together, that we got through, that we got past. Join us for our next episode, 2 weeks from today, where we'll speak with Michael Platt of Michael's Desserts, a young baker who is changing the world with every cupcake he bakes. Until then.